Welcome, everyone, to Fashion's New Reality. This is a bold exploration by Creative Victoria into the frontline technologies that are firing imaginations across the global fashion industry today. I'm Janice Breen-Burns. I'm a fashion editor, journalist, and I'm your MC for today's Creative Exchange, Fashion's New Reality. Our event is being held today in Melbourne on the lands of the great Kulin Nation, and I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. I'd also like to pay my deep respects to their elders, past and present, and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. As a journalist, I've reported fashion, both local and global, for many, many years. I've marked its milestones and its cultural disruptions, but this is a once-in-a-century moment. Fashion is becoming more deeply infused with creative technologies every day, from its production, delivery and business models to the fantastic arts of virtual reality, augmented reality, the data capturing miracle of machine learning, the worlds within worlds of game development. And all this at precisely the moment that everything else we ever knew or trusted about fashion is also changing. All the ways that we have created fashion in the past, all the ways we've used it, valued it, interpreted and engaged with it, they will never be the same again. Creative Victoria has recognised this historic junction, and it's plunged into fashion's logical future, presenting today a world first. The global vision of our special guests, Roberta Annan and Badriyah Henry, for a fashion business metaverse called Semblance World. And they'll explain what a metaverse is for those who are unfamiliar. Today, we'll also deep dive into Creative Victoria's exciting partnership with local creative technology company Ignition Immersive and several of Melbourne's top independent fashion designers. Ignition Immersive jumped at the chance to realise Creative Victoria's vision, to introduce the designers to virtual reality, to augmented reality and to games technologies, and to thoroughly exploit the value of those technologies, their innovation and appeal, and also to explore how they might be harnessed to create new market channels and audiences. We'll hear how their experiments unfolded in our panel later. But first, at the helm of Creative Victoria's passion for this business-driven fusion of fashion and technology is our State Minister for Creative Industries, the Honourable Denny Pearson. And I now invite Minister Pearson to open this Creative Exchange event, Fashion's New Reality.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Exchange. Today I'm joining you from the land of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people. I pay my respects to the elders past and present. I also acknowledge the First Peoples and traditional owners of the lands you're joining in from. The Creative Exchange is a long-running events program presented by Creative Victoria. It works to support professional and business development in the creative sector. It does this by bringing you the most inspiring ideas and insights from the local, national and international creative scene. This special Melbourne International Games Week edition is co-presented by ACME. It will explore the new frontier of the fashion industry by showcasing the ways that fashion is embracing technology and in turn designing a new future for the industry. The past year and a half has presented challenges and it has compelled us all to think differently. Today, you'll hear from local designers and labels who are working in partnership with virtual and augmented reality experts to explore ways to take their businesses to a new level through the Victorian Government's Digital Fashion Incubator initiative. You'll also hear from an incredible international leader and changemaker, Roberta Annan, who, with her team of fashion and retail technology experts, has been working on a groundbreaking initiative supported by Epic Games. Victoria is the creative state. We are home to an amazing creative community that spans arts and culture, music, design, screen, and of course, fashion and games. And when creative minds from different fields come together, powerful things can emerge. If you're in fashion, I hope today's session inspires you to think about the possibilities that tech can bring to your business and your industry. For those in games, may this event get you thinking about how games and gaming technologies can be utilised right across the creative sector and beyond. Enjoy this session, and I hope you take the opportunity to join in more of the Melbourne International Games Week action. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Pearson. Now we segue to one of the most remarkable women you're ever likely to meet. Roberta Annan is co-creator with Badriyah Henry of the 3D immersive virtual worlds within worlds Metaverse, known as Semblance World. It's a unique and dreamy platform where luxury fashion brands and their consumers can meet, play, buy, sell, interact. Semblance World won Roberta and Badriyah an epic mega grant from the legendary Epic Games company, and it's launching right here at the Melbourne International Games Week 2021. Before Roberta explains more about what Semblance World is all about, though, let me explain a little bit about Roberta and why it's an incredibly rare privilege to host her here on our Fashion's New Reality Creative Exchange. Roberta is a Ghanaian businesswoman, founder in 2011 of the African Fashion Foundation. She's an investor, a philanthropist, and a United Nations Environment Programme Goodwill Ambassador. Roberta was the youngest African to be inducted into the African Leadership Hall of Fame. She's a graduate of both Carleton and Georgetown universities, and she began her career with an internship at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Roberta owns Annan Capital Partners, an investment company in sub-Saharan Africa, and ALDG, a portfolio of assets in sustainable, hospitality, agribusiness, and luxury, also in Africa. As well as founding the Africa Fashion Foundation, Roberta co-founded the Impact Fund for African Creatives. She is a member of the Young President Organisation and an advisory council member of the prestigious Condé Nast College of Fashion and Design, where she works with no less than Edward Enninful, editor of UK Vogue, Victoria Beckham, Naomi Campbell, the legendary Susie Menkes, and the renowned fashion journalist Sarah Moa. So welcome, Roberta Annan.
Greetings, everyone from the center of the world, Accra, Ghana. My name is Roberta Annan. I am the founder of African Fashion Foundation and also co-founder of Semblance World. Today, I will share a bit of my view on the importance of merging fashion and technology and how that is going to shape the future of the fashion and luxury industry. I've been in this industry for over a decade, and I'm very excited to see how things are shifting for the better. And I know, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of lives due to this COVID-19 pandemic. I think what COVID has given us is given us the opportunity and platform to press the stop button and recalibrate our minds on how we view things and how we do things as a people. Even though this is a fashion tech, event, I would love to touch on things like sustainability, inclusivity, and innovation, because they're very much the foundation upon which Semblance World was created. Stemming from my background, which has been really an advocate and proponent to support talent from emerging countries and protecting the culture and heritage in a way to promote biodiversity, and Badriyah's background and really injecting the idea of technology within the fashion space and getting fashion brands to think innovatively and differently about their businesses. We came together to, I would say, create magic and, create this wonderful platform that we're unveiling here today at this conference. But sustainability, to me, I like to touch on sustainability. As we adjust to the new norm of doing things, right, it's also important for businesses to continue to pivot and to meet the changing demands of consumers post-COVID. So how do we keep businesses and the value chain sustainable? How do we engage and connect with consumers? How do we provide convenient and seamless processes to our consumers by leveraging on digital transformation? If we're thinking differently about how we do business, we cannot continue on the path of fast fashion, because we know that is really not the most environmentally sustainable system of doing things. So how do we use technology to create systems in which we can bring everybody together, allow them to share ideas, share their knowledge, transfer ideas and transfer knowledge within a platform that is more inclusive? And that is why we are creating a platform like this called Semblance World. The other key thing here is, apart from sustainability, because I think, if you look at, the way in which we're going, it's creating lots of issues with climate injustice. And as a colleague of mine from UNEP said the other day, the world is on fire. And we need to sit down and reset and recalibrate how we do things. Why has Africa become the dumping ground for fast fashion? Because 40% of fashion waste is actually dumped on the shores of the African continent. And that these are all things that we need to really address and change our mindsets about. So it has to be a shift. And we're giving the platform an opportunity for that shift to happen. And it all comes with education and being more inclusive. So that takes me back to the second topic that I'd like to touch on, which is inclusivity, right? So if you look at digital transformation and how it's redefining the fashion industry as we know it, creating a more inclusive environment for various stakeholders within the industry, especially for independent fashion designers who may not have a certain level of visibility and exposure as compared to big houses. These digital platforms are creating an all-inclusive platform for these stakeholders to contribute and benefit from enormous opportunities available in the global fashion industry. Social media has, served as a powerful tool for many brands to showcase their works and to reach a more global audience, which is also helping to bridge the gap between Africa and the rest of the world. But what Semblance is offering is giving the platform to have a more concentrated experience with your clients, with your consumers, and taking away all the extra noise. I believe that this metaverse of fashion is also creating and using technology as a level playing field to allow people that wouldn't necessarily have like a big budget to do a show in Paris to actually showcase their work, right at Semblance. And like we said, everybody's VIP at Semblance, everybody gets opportunity to sit front row. So we're also demystifying that myth that you need to be of a certain caliber to be able to play in the fashion industry. So I think it's really important to highlight that. And the last point for me is innovation. But if you look at digital transformation, it's also pushing, the innovation agenda within the industry with consumer demands and market trends changing rapidly. The industry needs to be sensitive to market and consumer insights and use such data insights to champion innovation. And what we are doing at Semblance is really creating the platform to educate and to point, fashion designers to the right places to find the most innovative trends, point them in the direction of innovative trends that they could also follow to help build their businesses. So thank you so much for giving me this, the opportunity to be part of this. And I do hope that you enjoy Semblance World and you help us on this journey that we are going on. I know that it's going to be bigger and bigger, and we are really looking forward to collaborators and partners that can take us on this journey.
Thank you, Roberta. What an extraordinary world Semblance is going to be. A metaverse of luxury fashion brands that I know the designers on our panel now would love to inhabit. And here they are. Meet Estelle Michaelides of Mickey in the Van, Denny Francisco of Nagali, and Courtney Stoltz of Maud Studio. They're 3 of 7 top independent designer brands in Melbourne who collaborated with Ignition Immersive on 7 proof of concepts projects just right for a digital fashion platform like Semblance. Also meet tech professional Darren Vukasinovic of Ignition Immersive, the designer's collaborator. He was actually their guide and their guru as they let their imaginations rip, built their concepts into digital spaces, and explored the fantastic possibilities and myriad potential benefits of either virtual reality, augmented reality, or 3D animation. Darren also helped our 4 other absent designers, the renowned milliners Felicity Northeast, Melissa Jackson, and Christine Walker of the Human Chameleon, and accessories designer Christy Dickinson of the House of Dizzy. They did experiments with augmented reality, and in Christy and Christine's case, 3D animated AR active fashion accessories with the potential to generate new digital revenue streams such as NFTs or non-fungible tokens. Finally, also here to tackle the ultimate answer to what life's really like in a fashion metaverse, we're thrilled and privileged to welcome Semblance World's co-creator, Badriyah Henry. But before we kick off, meet my tech-savvy co-host of this panel, journalist Ginny Maxwell. Ginny reports on video games and digital content for Screen Hub, Australia's screen industry publication. They contribute a monthly games criticism column to the Saturday paper and host ACME's Women and Non-Binary Gamers Club. So, Ginny, will we start with Darren? I'll start by explaining who Darren is. He's the visionary charged, obviously, with pulling the fashion people and the tech people together with a common creative purpose. Darren is an immersive technology and creative media expert. He's founder of the virtual reality platform Inverse and immersive technology company Ignition Immersive. Darren has delivered Australia's very first live-streamed virtual reality music performances. He's broken ground in filming opera in virtual reality, and as he'll explain today, he's currently working on a digital first with Australian fashion designers in digital wearables. Welcome, Darren. So let's start. Creative Victoria's vision to fuse your tech and the designer's fashion was a first for you, wasn't it? And what were your initial thoughts and the process that you nutted out about how to do it?
Yeah, look, I was absolutely thrilled that Creative Victoria actually drove this project from the inside. I know they've been looking at this intersection across, all of the creative arts. It's happening obviously through film. We've seen a lot of technological and, immersive tech advancements through film. It's happening across games. It's been going for a long time, and particularly with fashion. There's always this obvious piece that fashion has this home within gaming and immersive technology. So the fact that they were looking at everything that's happened through the pandemic and how it's impacted, different fashion designers, particularly with the ability to get out to runways or the tactility of being able to go and try stuff on before you buy it. All of the stuff in which we connect to markets and push our brands has come to a bit of a grinding halt. And so they kicked off this project looking at how these different technologies can actually accelerate and create new market opportunities for the designers. And it's not just about what's happened through the pandemic. It's about where are the new opportunities that are happening in the emerging and growing, gaming sector and through immersive technologies themselves. So, they coin phrase this a proof of concept. And what I love about that is the sentiment of it is to educate the industry, is to open people's eyes. And all of the designers had different varying levels of awareness of this technology, from none at all through to some ideas that maybe it's too expensive, that's something that large brands could do. So we sort of nutted it out with Creative Victoria. We wanted to not just demonstrate to the industry what the tech could do, but get onto some principles about accessibility to the technology from a financial aspect and how it can practically be used. So I think the inception of this project is in the spirit of doing something great, doing something creative, and driving it out into market in a way that actually encourages the broader Victorian fashion design industry to look at this technology as a serious avenue for driving their design craft.
It's kind of inevitable, isn't it, that this is going to be incorporated into the industry in a big way. Tell me a little bit more about the process, and were there any differences when you were working with fashion to the way you usually work?
Look, absolutely. I mean, fashion, everybody has this great affinity with fashion, and fashion really defines a person's individuality. We think about these longer term concepts like metaverse and who am I in the metaverse. The idea of people expressing their individuality is at the core of that. And so there's this obvious connection with fashion designers helping people in their digital incarnation actually participate in that world and express themselves. And that was, one of the big connecting pieces out of this. I mean, the gaming sector is absolutely massive. It's a huge growth sector. And the fact that there are opportunities for creatives in different disciplines to be able to move in and participate in that ecosystem, it's been a little bit different for every one of the designers, because when you talk about, say, dresses or things that flow, these things aren't necessarily that easy to replicate in 3D. 3D is really quite suitable for more solid objects, I will say. As you look at things like millinery and sunglasses, and they lend themselves to 3D. So as we split the project up in a proof of concept, we were looking at the accessibility of the technology, VR and AR, and what would best suit each of the designers and the actual type of fashion that they work in. And that's where the three streams come from. So we're looking at the ability to use VR and immersion to bring people closer to the designer's ethos and their story and their world. All designers, they come from this world of creative imagination, and that's where the design craft comes from and the inspirations from that. And VR allows us to take audiences or buyers into that notional world and help them better understand the designer and the ethos. And AR has these applications for being able to reach consumers and allowing them to try things on before they buy them. So for each of the different designers and the different streams, we're looking at right now what would be the most accessible, logical way for them to embrace technology and where it could be most useful. As for the process, it's been a really, really beautiful organic process. And it just started with us jumping on a call with each of the designers and going, okay, where does your imagination go? What are the things that you've always wanted to do that you can't do physically, with these items? For the VR piece, it's been really about where would you want to take a buyer or somebody, that wants to connect with your fashion? Where in the world or in the ethereal world would you want to take them to be able to better understand where that design notion comes from? And for the AR streams, it was more about how can we connect what you're doing to the buyer, to the wearer, in a way that brings them closer to the physical item, particularly during COVID times. But then there's this other piece in the AR that is really around, I'm very passionate about this. How can a designer transcend the physical design craft and do something in the digital world? What does digital extensions, animation, and craft look like? And you go beyond the physical craft. And that extension, I think, with most of the designers has been really exciting. Actually seeing that process of them thinking about, one of the designers has this cap and has a chameleon on it. And, she's always wanted that chameleon to be able to change colors and, zap, bugs that are flying by. And that's what's in her mind when she designs that cap. And the fact that we can literally do that and bring it to life, and then it can be on someone's head and that can be happening. She's just so excited about that. So she starts thinking, well, all the things I've wanted to do can now start to happen. And it happens in this blended, physical and digital world.
Oh, sounds absolutely fantastic and so seductive and interesting and exciting. It is really a whole new universe of technology for us fashionable Luddites. Ginny, I know that you've got some questions for Darren as well. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations on the project, first and foremost. It's always really exciting to see collaborations like these, and they are quite rare. I think, as you mentioned, people see these technologies as quite sectioned off and untouchable. And I wondered, what do you think would need to change in the tech world for, VR technology, for example, which has been in public use for a decade, but kind of rarely gets used outside of serious industry applications or games, to kind of get a more accessible, broader use?
Look, I think we're already seeing that trend. Like VR headsets 3 years ago were, $800, $1,200, and you needed to have a PC. They used to be something that was connected. I suppose you'd think about a traditional enterprise use case, industrial training, or gamers, sitting alone in a bedroom somewhere. And it's kind of come to this consumer technology now. It's $400, and it's really what a consumer device. It's a lounge room device. So yeah, the technology itself has to become more human accessible. It has to become more like a consumer device. We need to start breaking the stereotypes around gaming is for gamers. Gaming technology has driven so much innovation cross sector. You look at what's happened in film and virtual production. We're able to use Unreal Engine to build brilliant film sets for a tenth of the price and do the most magnificent films. It's the technology that sits under the hood that enables these things. And so really, when we think about VR, we shouldn't be thinking about it as a gaming technology. We think about it as a completely new media channel with new opportunities, and how do you enter that channel, and how do you express yourself, and how you connect with audiences. I think it's about 41.4% growth in VR headsets over the last 12 months. Pandemic's certainly done a lot to pique curiosity in virtual reality technology. Seeing all sorts of museums and other things having to go to a virtual stream, and VR sits in that virtual stream very nicely. So I think we're well on the way to seeing a significant uptake in VR technology itself. When we're talking to Creative Vic, I'm really passionate about designers and anyone getting an opportunity at the start of the curve, before there's too many in the space. And again, that's what excited me about this project. It's get in there now, get in there while it's early, get in there while it's growing, establish a footprint, use the technology. For the VR immersive fashion show pieces, or taking people out onto country like we want to with Denny, or into Estelle's magnificent sort of world of imagination. You can also take a VR headset and send it to buyers. You can springboard it onto the Oculus TV store, and people can consume it globally. And people are hungry for content in the VR sphere. It's the complete opposite to what's going on in traditional channels. It's hard to get a look in on traditional 2D streaming. So I think we're already well on the way to uptake. We're on the verge of a Quest 3. We don't know what price point that's going to be, but it will be a better device. It will be faster to set up. VR needs to be at a point where it's like a remote control of your mobile phone. I pick it up, I put it on, it works, I'm in there, I consume the content, I take it off. So we're getting very close to that.
And maybe having more fashion designers in this space means they'll actually make a VR headset that looks good too.
Look, there is a golden opportunity there. I'm not critiquing any of the major tech companies' design skills, but
so for designers out there who are looking at the fruits of this project and getting excited, what kind of resources do exist, or what kind of steps can they take to kind of explore the digital space a little more?
Look, there is plenty of resources online. There are plenty of forums. There are plenty of articles sort of springboarding the kind of work that's being done. Even what we're doing here through this, panel, and the sorts of resources we can put out from that are meant to point the way and pique a bit of curiosity into looking into this. Off the back of coming up to this panel, the designers were all doing some Googling and starting to send me some stuff like, look what I found, and this is going on. I mean, there's so much stuff out there which starts to point the direction about what's possible. The very first part of that is what is possible. And that doesn't take much other than searching and seeing what others are doing to really encourage you and open the mind and go, wow, this is amazing. Like, I could do some great stuff. The next step is how. We're getting to a point with things like Spark AR and filters. And one of the designs, actually, Courtney, that's here, we're kind of wondering whether we can actually just build a simple tool so Courtney can actually create the AR herself, right? We're getting to that point where it can be self-created. So that's the next step, is some of this is accessible. You don't need to be a programmer or developer to necessarily be able to do it. And for the stuff that you do need expertise in doing it, there is just so many individual developers, small studios, large studios like ours, and it's cost effective. So there's partnerships. We really want to start to foster connectivity. I mean, developers, game developers, gaming industry is super passionate and wanting to hear from people from traditional crafts. They want to hear from people coming into that sector. So yeah, I think it just takes curiosity first, a little bit of random Googling, a bit of aspiration, inspiration, and then starting down that journey.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Well, there's plenty of There's plenty of hunger for it anyway, Darren. I think we'll skip over to the designers now, the collaborators, the people like Denny Francisco of Nagali, you mentioned. She had some unique challenges for her virtual reality experiment. She's an award-winning designer, a proud Wurundjeri woman who describes herself as all about collaboration and supporting Indigenous communities. Through Nagali, Denny says she works to expand the reach of First Nation artists by respectfully translating their artworks into fabric prints, creating sustainable, premium quality clothing that can proudly walk the streets of the world. And Denny says Nagali operates through the lens of, let me see if I can pronounce this properly, Yindayamara, fashion that shows respect, is polite, considered, gentle to country, and shows honour to the cross-country collaborations that she has with other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander creatives. So Denny, I want to ask you, first and foremost, was this a particularly evocative project for you, representing, as you do, the oldest culture in the world, a 60,000-year-old culture, and its juxtaposition, this fusing within a cutting-edge technical framework must have been quite challenging for you?
Thanks, Janice. Well, you know, in a way, it was more exciting than challenging. When Michelle from Creative Victoria first spoke to me about it, immediately I thought, oh my gosh, that just sounds amazing. And a very exciting thing to consider, and also a very exciting thing to be for Nagali to be invited to be part of, because a bit like as Darren said before, I kind of sat on the edge of knowing sort of a little bit about it, but I guess, you know, in the process of running our business and so on, you don't always sort of like stop to delve into it more. So the opportunity did give me the real desire to learn more and to know more, and very carefully taken through that with Darren and the team. But I think, as you said, that fusion between our culture, which is so incredibly old in many ways, you know, there's so many aspects to who we are as a First Nations community, but also to this opportunity of being able to look at how do we celebrate that more, how do we I guess take it out into the world more. And that was probably for me also to the most exciting part. The vision of Nagali right from when we started the brand was how do we take art off, amazing First Nations art off the wall, and translate it into fabric prints, and then have it walk the streets and be celebrated as a segue for being able to share the stories of our culture and our country. So
it's sure taking it off the wall, isn't it?
It's sure taking it off the wall. And I didn't expect for a million years that an opportunity such as this would exist to take it to the world in such a way. So
how did you envision? What did you imagine? Because one thing that this kind of technology does, it lets your imagination rip, doesn't it?
Well, yes. And I thought that what was really interesting is actually breaking down some of the ways that you see things, because I remember saying to Darren once we were talking about models, and I said to him, well, maybe we can use the same model, and if we actually only see her from the back, then you won't know that it's the same model. And as he said, it's 360 there, see everything. So, you know, just little stories like that. I thought, oh, okay, yes, you know, I can kind of understand that now. So that part was just pushing the boundaries of what you see as being possible.
And I can see that you're thinking about the cost benefit of using one model as opposed to half a dozen as you might in a normal shoot.
Well, there was that part, but also too, we had the vision of when Darren talked about speaking to us as designers and say, what is it that you would love to do that you can't do right now? And that was for us being able to shoot Nagali out on country, something that we really wanted to do, and take that journey through country. and be able to tell the story of country at the same time as being able to display the garments and the product. So it just had us to be more creative when we couldn't quite get out on country, but I guess, you know, that's part of the whole process as well.
So part of your process was going to be doing a shoot on country with a few models and some garments, I suppose. And when COVID intervened, what did you do? And then what was the process beyond the shoot that you collaborated with Darren?
Yeah, so we had this incredibly beautiful storyboard put together of how we were going to be out on country, how we were going to do that with the welcome to country, with the smoking ceremony, with the models taking their journey across country, and then finalizing at the end with the yarning circle and open fire, and we had all of that planned. And then of course we couldn't get out on country. So Darren was fantastic in just being able to not talk about how things could be done, but just being suggesting enough that created the creative space to step into. Oh, well, maybe we could do it like that, and then, you know, what if we did that? So, and I think that collaborative part is what's made this whole experience so special. When you have somebody like Darren and his team that obviously so deeply know their stuff. And working with somebody who doesn't know any of that stuff, it's been quite an amazing process.
Jenny, do you have some questions for Denny? I'm sure about the.
I do.
Please,
Denny. One of the exciting things about your project is that it doesn't just bring your work into a digital space, but the work of other artists. I was wondering if you spoke to them about this project and how they felt about it.
I haven't spoken to them about the project because it's been embargoed, so I haven't done that. But I think the work that I do with the artists and the art centre is, as I said, you know, being able to, particularly for our artists in remote areas who are so restricted in what it is that they can do in terms of being able to, they either have to transport their artwork somewhere or they have to get people to come to them. And of course, you know, in the last 18 months, that's not been possible. So I think that there'll be so many people in our First Nations creative that are going to be super excited about the potentiality of this.
That actually leads on really well to my next question, which is that there are quite a lot of young Indigenous people in the game space in this country, telling stories, telling sovereign stories and personal stories and cultural stories through games as a way to kind of share culture in a respectful way, a respectful and accessible way. And I just kind of wondered what your perspective was on what the digital space can offer to Indigenous communities and how it can kind of facilitate cultural sharing or continuity.
I think that anything that we think about in terms of technology that allows our young people in remote communities or even regional communities to be able to be part of what's going on is really important, because I think that the separation and sometimes the feeling of disconnect is really difficult and quite challenging. So I think that I mean, I didn't know that there were so many of our young people involved in gaming, but I think that that's absolutely fantastic, you know, in terms of being able to use gaming as a way of sharing culture and doing that respectfully. I think that that's an amazing thing. So I could see that there would be incredible potential to work with our remote and regional areas for this technology.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you think there are some infrastructural barriers there too with tech and regional communities?
Yeah, yes, there is, of course, because, you know, we still have to address, you know, even sometimes the access to, you know, to the internet in some places. There's still that challenge around having computer accessibility and so on, depending on where the remote communities are located. So yes, there's definitely infrastructure challenges that will happen, and I really hope that that we do get some pace happening along with that for many reasons, and of course this being one, because we can see the great potential for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, I wanted to ask you a little bit about sustainability, which I know is such a key part of your work, and it's something that I know is extremely important to Badriyah and Roberta and the work of Semblance Worlds as well. So I just wondered how the digital space can kind of support, how you think maybe the digital space can support maybe a more sustainable fashion industry.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, because I think that it will do much to support sustainability, because being able to put product in front of consumers in a just-in-time manufacturing process, I think that it means that there is less waste. There's which we know is a huge problem within the fashion industry. So I do think that from a sustainability point of view, I think that we would be able to use the technology to get more of an understanding to what it is that our customers and our clients want. There's also the opportunity, I think, to work with major retailers and so on in a collaborative type of process, whereby orders can be done collectively in some ways, and particularly if you have this type of technology that people feel comfortable to buy. And I think also the technology around people being able to virtually try on clothing, I think that's a complete game changer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Denny. Let's switch designers to Estelle Michaelides, Mickey in the Van. She was one of the designers that experimented with Darren on virtual reality proof of concept project as well. Estelle is a designer, stylist, illustrator. Estelle is amazing. She has a prolific creative output that was so highly prized once that she was flown to Doha just to draw the guests at a royal wedding. She describes her much-loved limited edition and made-to-order Mickey in the Van seasonal collections of wearable art as evocative expressions of her inner musings, journey, and her story. And she combines dramatic runway style with street edge and often incorporates custom fabrics featuring her own illustrations. Recently, Estelle's short fashion film, Modern Antiquities, was selected for the London Fashion Film Festival. And in that competition, it was nominated for Best Costume. And this year, it was also named a finalist at the Melbourne Fashion Film Festival Awards. Estelle, you're a constant experimenter from my knowledge of your work. Have you ever experimented with digital technology before? And what were your first thoughts and vision when this opportunity came along?
I have never experimented, but I was very aware of it. Now, I'm not technically savvy by any stretch of the imagination. So the idea of it was so far out of my realm, but I knew that it was something that I needed to pursue, because our landscape is changing, and particularly now where we have so many restrictions and limitations, I had to adapt, not only with how I designed or what I was designing, but also the way that I was presenting my collections. So it's almost like a no-brainer to pursue this digital realm.
And it suits your work so well. Tell me about, can you give me some examples of the steps that you went through with Darren at Ignition Immersive?
Yeah, and you're right, it does suit my work, because I'm a storyteller and my work is so theatrical, as you can tell. So being able to express my storytelling through this realm is a perfect marriage. When I first spoke to Darren, my initial idea was to well, I was actually being such a rookie at this. I was still trying to rein it in and create a short film in the traditional sense, where we were going to go to the Dandenong Mountains and film it in 3D. And also, same as Denny, I couldn't actually even wrap my head around the idea that it was 3D, and even rain. We had the concern of, if it rains, like even having one raindrop on the lens would feel like someone's got a water on their eyeball. So there's just so many parts to it that are just so foreign to me. The initial concept was to film in the Dandenong Mountains, a gorgeous theatrical, poetic short film. But same as Denny, with having obstacles, we had to change constantly. But actually, I really loved that because it enabled me to push the boundaries. And the more I studied the digital world and Metaverse, I then began to wanting to explore something more that led to the fantasy world. And then that ideally lends itself to my collage work. So I approached Darren and I said, how about, is it possible to make my collages and my illustrations come to life? And of course, Darren, being the incredible human that he is, and his team, didn't say no and said, sure, let's give it a go. Let's explore it. So right now we're just adding each layer of the collage. And the last piece of it will be to film dancers and a violinist in front of a green screen. And then that will be the final layer of each scene.
That sounds incredible. I can't wait to see it. How different, I mean, you do, as you mentioned, you do a lot of collage. You are an illustrator, you're a creator and a visionary, and you're always thinking of new ways to do things. How different was this, even adapting to your usual shoots and runways and films? Was there, it sounds like there wasn't that much difference, or am I getting the wrong message?
No. It is very different, mostly in the sense that it is, like I said, it's so far removed from my understanding and my realm. I'm not technically savvy by any stretch of the imagination. So although I'm very aware of it, and I know that it's something that I need to evolve into and develop into, and I'm really aware of what luxury brands are doing. Louis Vuitton have created skins. I didn't even know what skins were. And Balenciaga created a virtual movie. So I was very aware of what was going on, but it's very different to anything that I've ever created. And so that was the challenge for me, to really wrap my head around it.
That's interesting, because you are doing a lot of the same processes, but you're working with different technical professionals. Would that be? Absolutely. I mean, the fundamental aspect of me wanting to be a storyteller and wanting to capture the essence of my work, which is really poetic and theatrical and rhythmical, that essence will always be there. And I think that this is so wonderful, because it actually further enhances it, and it really captures that and evokes that emotion that I've always been wanting to convey in my work. How are you going to use this experience now, Estelle? Are you going to expand it? What are you going to do? Are you going to look for new ways to market Wiki in the Van, or is this going to be a new way to present your seasonal collections? What have you got in mind for the future?
Oh, this is just the beginning, Janice. It really is just the beginning. And I've really come to realise how my clients really need to have an input And I know that they appreciate and they love feeling a part of something. So Darren and I were even just talking about this afternoon, talking about where can we go from here. I want to include my clients and take them into this journey and throw them into this immersive world where they can actually create something with Mickey in the van.
Oh, well, then you get into machine learning and people designing their own garments or helping design them, and then the whole sustainability thing, which we're going to talk about more with Roberta and Badriyah. But it has so many, as you said, it's so many layers, hasn't it? So the future has so many layers for fashion if it's embedded in technology.
Absolutely. I mean, I really do believe, the more that I Google and the more that I research, I really believe that we will all have our own avatars and we all will be just roaming around in the metaverse. So there's so much scope, and it just is. It's an incredible. It's where we are right now at this present moment. There's so much scope, and it's just a revolution in the fashion industry. And it's so wonderful to be a part of it, to be a pioneer in this.
It's kind of plugging in at the right time too, isn't it? When we're spending so much time with our technology anyway. It just seems very timely.
Yeah.
I know Ginny's got some questions for you, Estelle, so I'll hand over to Ginny.
Thanks so much. Estelle, I really want to start with the personal, which I know is such a formative sort of element in how you create, that is, sorry. And I wondered how different it felt making personal art in a digital space, knowing that, sometimes digital spaces can feel a bit alienating maybe, or impersonal.
Really good question, Ginny. You're right. Everything that I touch with my creativity is so personal, and having to explore an avenue that is very unfamiliar to me, but still not wanting to sabotage my personal creativity. That was a really big challenge. But as I mentioned earlier, Darren was just so embracing, and so he just had the ability to talk to me in my language and make me understand that I was able to bring my personal story into it, and I wasn't going to compromise that in any way.
That's wonderful to hear. What an excellent collaboration.
It's been a great collaboration.
You mentioned earlier that working in 3D has really opened up more storytelling opportunities for you as an artist, and I wondered if you could expand on that a little bit. What is exciting for you about storytelling in the digital world?
Because it's something new. Like we're just on the cusp of this trajectory path, and just to be at the beginning of this is so exciting. And to be able to, as I said to Janice, to be able to share my storytelling through the deep 3D realm is mind-blowing. There's so much scope and there's so much possibility, and it's really exciting, as challenging as it is. And I'm a small independent brand. So and what Darren had spoken about earlier and what Janice had asked him, there is reach for small designers to be a part of this.
Absolutely. Finally, I know you've already talked a bit about kind of practically where you might go next with your work, but I want to ask the impractical question. If you had an unlimited budget, all the resources in the world, what kind of digital project would you want to make? Would it be Louis Vuitton style skins? Would it be a fashion metaverse of your own? What's exciting for you?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier with Janice, being able to make it really inclusive with my clients. So to have a fantasy place where my clients can create an avatar of themselves and create looks and perhaps converse, hang out with other avatars. I mean, I don't even know. There's just so much. And just to, oh God, I want it all. Because it's so exciting.
Well,
and
I,
also
for one,
to be able to work, I would really love to be able to work with larger brands as well. Make it a collective project, bring small independent designers into the mix and, just have this massive arena where there's a large, luxurious brands, gaming brands. Is that a thing? Gaming brands, independent designers, make it an incredible immersive world.
Well, I, for one, cannot wait to dress up in your fantasy world. That sounds amazing. Thank you so much.
There'll be a lot of this.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Thanks, Jenny and Estelle. And Estelle, you're talking fashion's language at the moment. It's always prefaced with collaboration. So you know how I feel about collaboration too. So we're on the brink of something great here. And I want to skip over now to Courtney Stoltz of Maud Studio. Courtney was one of the two top Melbourne accessories designers, including milliner Felicity Northeast, who explored with Ignition Immersive ways that consumers might try on her designs in a virtual 3D fitting room. Maud Studio is absolutely beloved in all its markets for its ostentatious accessories, particularly its statement eyewear and handbags. And Courtney herself has more than 10 years experience working as a designer locally and internationally. And she describes her latest collection as a marriage of beautiful optics paired with stunning jewelry components to create a new form of accessory. That sounds exactly what we need to hear about now, using plant-based materials, crystals and laser cut details. Welcome, Courtney. Courtney, your elevated eyewear also seems quite a logical product for an experiment with this kind of technology. How did you and Darren from Ignition Immersive, how did you nut out the process of developing a 3D augmented reality fit application?
Hello, Janice. Thank you so much. And how right you are. It is such a perfect type of fashion to apply to this digital realm. It was an absolute gift to be approached with this opportunity because it's such an essential aspect for eyewear when you have an online store, to be able to provide your customers with the option to try on your sunglasses. So when I was given this opportunity, it was almost too good to be true. And the process itself was pretty seamless from my part. Luckily, Darren and Ed were nothing but enthusiastic. It was really just a matter of sending through my initial samples, and they've been really generous in working with what I had, because the timing was almost a little bit slow from my end. My final samples are not quite finished, and so they've worked to my initial draft swatches, the first samples that I received, which was pretty amazing to be able to render these products without the final piece. So it's been pretty amazing for them to be able to manage that, given the state of development that I'm in. So it's really exciting. I saw the first version on Monday and I can't wait for it to be finished. So yeah, it's been really seamless and really wonderful.
And as I said, just totally logical. I think when we try on accessories like sunglasses, for instance, we can sometimes try on dozens, can't we? And or hundreds eventually before we find something that suits our face. So tell me about the actual process. Was there is there photography involved? How did you manage that? What sort of what steps did you go through?
So my understanding is, because I'm not across the technical side as much,
Okay.
however, I do understand that they've taken the initial first samples and have 3D scanned them. And from there, they've then actually applied the acetate swatches that I have to apply the colour, and then they've scanned the jewellery elements that I'm using so that they can accurately capture the shine of a crystal or the surface of a particular type of metal, and all of those really minute details that need to be accurate. The other thing is that some of my lenses are reflective. So that was a concern initially, because when you have something extremely reflective and you're trying to photograph that, you obviously have a challenge there to be able to minimize what the reflection is so that the customer can actually have an accurate experience. And Darren had a genius idea, and actually they have put a beach scene into the sunglasses lens. So their attention to detail and also their imagination within this is really exceptional.
I really think that we need to pull Darren in here again, don't we? Darren, can you sort of confirm what Courtney's understood is the process there, and give us a few more little insights on how the 3D augmented reality fit application was created?
Yeah, absolutely. So using what we call photogrammetry, and this is just taking hundreds of photographs of an object. You can use 3D scanners for this as well. We went down the photogrammetry route. So we take in hundreds of photos using a standard camera, and recreate this object in 3D. So what we're after there is a 1-for-1 accurate scale, same with the elements that go on there. We then only had, so Courtney's were samples. There were samples of the actual frames, and the frames were accurate in terms of how they were going to be, but we had the acetate swatches and the other materials. And like in any 3D process, you build a 3D object, you then apply materials and textures, and then lighting and refraction and things like that. So we recreated all those things based on what we knew of the actual samples that we had. And we had the acetate samples, we'd recreate that particular texture and how it behaves in light. And then the actual lenses themselves, looking at them, recreating them in a gaming engine in 3D, and then applying them onto it. And then bring it all together into a photorealistic 3D model, and then springboarding it through augmented reality filters. The AR filters are fantastic. It's part of what you get out of your Instagram already. We're using the same technology that people are using for their selfies and their filters for their Instagram, but we're enabling people to actually utilize their own fashion wear as part of a filter. So the tech itself is just broadly accessible. And so getting the models in there in a photorealistic way, and then making sure that the tracking works and everything else is part of the magic of what we do. But then the actual tech and the execution is anyone who's got Instagram, Facebook can actually use these filters out of the box in that app. It's great.
That sounds really exciting. Does that mean that it's quite an inexpensive process, or it could eventually be?
Absolutely. So one of the things we're looking at is even the ability of simple 3D self-scanning kits, setting up ways in which people can actually springboard and create these filters themselves. I mean, what we do isn't rocket science. There's attention to detail, and there's very specific crafts that people in 3D do to get things photorealistic. But to be able to create ways in which people can sort of scan, I mean, it's consumerization of technology, right? So 3D scanners themselves, I mean, we're getting a new one that's just been on Kickstarter, a Revo Point that it's $1,000, and I think you can do a lot of the magic and the hard work. So the idea here is, can you create self-scanning kits for anyone that's got some degree of scale, the ability to actually create 3D objects of these things themselves. But the other part out of the whole creative process was to, if you design in 3D in the first place, if your design is originated in 3D or in gaming engine, this is where you start to come in with, encouraging people to use different tools from the outset. You've already got the 3D models ready if you're using that as part of your design process. So there's sort of a fork in the road here that if you can start to design in 3D first, even if you're going to a physical process, you'll already always have your digital assets. You have your digital assets that you can output to web, out to augmented reality, into VR, into a Semblance World Metaverse. So there's a bit of a shift here potentially in the tool set that could be used from the outset.
And the products that you begin designing in 3D, could they also be Estelle's and Denny's products? Or would they have to be something quite solid like Courtney's glasses and handbags?
This is when you get into some of the more complex things. So as you know, a pair of sunglasses doesn't move. It's a physical rigid object, right? And it sort of lends itself to AR and VR very easily in 3D modeling. When you have something like a beautiful gown, some of the stuff Estelle and Denny make, the whole beauty of it is how it moves when you move. Now, getting physics and dynamics, moving with a gown in 3D space, that's a whole nother ball game. Absolutely possible. But, to faithfully represent what a gown looks like in 3D as a solid object, no problem. We can, photogrammetry that or 3D scan it. But how that gown would move in the wind or when somebody twirls around, that's where, you're talking about very specific physics within gaming engines and things like that. So when we looked at this for the VR out, that's why we didn't take any of the wearable fashion in terms of, dresses and stuff into the AR stream straight away. It just, you can do it. Of course you can do it, but it's far more complex.
I can see how it would be. Courtney, can I just come back to you again? Did you enjoy the whole process? What can you see as far as its potential is?
The potential is that this is very much the tip of the iceberg. It was, as I said, really seamless, and I'm so grateful for the team at Ignition Immersive for doing all of the hard work, because I really didn't have much to do with it except for sending through all of my samples and swatches. But when I received the app, and as Darren said, it's literally something that you can already use. You don't need to download anything. Sorry, I misspoke. It's not an app. It's already able to be used on Facebook. And when I was sent through the link, it was just transformative to be able to see something that you've designed in the physical world to then be replicated so accurately on your phone. And the beauty of this is that anybody who has a smartphone and an internet connection can experience it. And I think that is what is the most truly exciting part of this whole opportunity. And now that I've had this experience, all that I can think about is all of the other opportunities. It's really just, that moment in The Wizard of Oz when everything just clicks into color, except it's not color, it's a different dimension. And us as designers, we are always thinking about ideas, we're idea dreaming. And for me, I have this obsession with imaginary objects and how you can create something really unique and beautiful into something that's wearable, usable, practical. So it's such a beautiful marriage of the real and the imaginary, and I just can't wait to explore it further.
Oh, I just love all that excitement. We've used that word excitement so often in the last few minutes, but you can really understand it. I love that analogy of clicking over into colour, like in the Land of Oz or the World of Oz. Jenny, you must.
Can I also say, Jenna,
Oh,
sorry,
Darren,
but you mentioned
ahead.
Something at the start. Like using a AR filter like this, you can try on 100 pair of sunglasses with like a swipe with your finger. Like the tactility of the process of doing this. I know, and you can try on different combinations. So the same frame with different acetates, the same frame with different embellishments, the same frame with different lenses. You sort of create this ability to quickly swap and check and look and compare. So in some ways that can be even better than physical. Nothing replaces physical. You still want to get your hands on physical items.
Actually, I would argue that in my case at least, this is way better than physical, because when I try on real glasses frames, I can't see. So I think it's a great project.
Excellent point, Darren. That's
but I will also
yeah.
just quickly as well.
No,
One of the things that I was excited about with Courtney is we were spitballing this idea that you can create in 3D notional designs. You could create a set of designs that you're thinking about, and you could pass this out and ask people to try on something that doesn't exist yet and tell us what your favorite is. And you can start to use those social mechanics to give you feedback. So you've got 4 design ideas and 10 different options, and you start to get actual feedback on how people feel about that before you've even made or committed to like a physical manufacturing process. And so, you know, if you think about even sustainability angles that can come from things like that as well, super important, market testing before making.
Absolutely. I think you're speaking Roberta and Badriyah's language there, the Semblance World, about digital solutions for data capturing. Denny, do you have some more questions for Courtney? Or?
Well, we've covered a lot, but actually what Darren just said leads into a question I had, which is how working in the digital space and kind of envisaging your work in the digital space, whether or not that's changed the way you approach fashion design, whether that's tools or on a more conceptual level.
I think from a design perspective, it's a really incredible opportunity to get a very quick sense of what an idea will look like once it's actually been produced. Because currently you can draw a sketch, you can put a technical sketch together, you know, using your computer, but that's essentially very flat. And, you know, you can use rendering to make it look more 3D, but it is essentially a 2D version. So what Darren and I were discussing yesterday was the ability for designers to actually have access to some of this technology so that you can create 3D versions and have a really quick formation of what your idea is as a physical product or as a physical creation. And that just rules out so much developmental time costs back and forth, you know, working with your manufacturer to send an idea away, waiting, you know, months to get something back. This, in essence, would allow you to have something created with a very tangible idea of what it would really look like in, you know, a matter of an hour or so. So it really has the opportunity to give designers a lot more efficiency in the design process, and also just to expand on ideas so much more, because at the moment, especially with the way eyewear is designed, you have to be very selective in what colors you choose and what manufacturing decisions you make, because it is quite costly. So in this way, you'd be able to trial so many different options and just expand on your inspiration so much wider, which essentially would, I'm sure, give you amazing results.
Yeah, I can see how that would be totally game-changing.
Finally, well, we might as well pull all this together now. So the vision that can pull all these fusions of fashion and technology together in ways not only to thrill and seduce consumers, but offer progressive digital solutions to brands. That's what Badriyah Henry knows about. Badriyah is co-creator of the Semblance World Metaverse, the extraordinary project that's being launched by Creative Victoria at Melbourne International Games Week. Badriyah is also founder and managing director of Dubai-based Fashion Foresight, which conceptualises innovative digital technology solutions for the international fashion industry and its consumers across the planet. She lectures in trends and fashion business development, and she's on our panel today, as well as appearing again later, to give us some insight into the ultimate question. How will digital technology projects like Estelle's, Courtney's and Denny's work in a metaverse? So Badriyah, could you take us on a tour of Semblance World? How will we enter the metaverse? What will we see? What can we try on? How will we buy? What can we do? And who will we meet?
Thank you, Janice, and thank you for having me on the panel today. I'm loving the discussion that I'm hearing and the insights coming in from the designers, because ideally, this is the reason why we created Semblance World, of where brands can go and have their consumers immerse themselves and take them on journeys and explorations of their brands. We had Estelle talk about storytelling. We had Courtney talk about how you could kind of experience the actual digital asset of the product. And that is ideally the essence of what will be possible inside of Semblance World. So to take you on a journey, you as the consumer would be able to log in, choose your avatar, customize it, and go on an adventure or a journey because it's open. So there's no exact path that you can follow. And so once you're in there and you come across Courtney's work or Estelle's work, you're able to experience it and experience not only the objects, but the designer's thinking behind creating that object. And that is possible through storytelling, taking them on quest, immersing them that that specific consumer or user is going on a journey with your brand, and you are almost, they're your guest, and you're taking them on this particular exciting and immersive experience. And I think that is ideally the essence of what we're trying to create with Semblance World. Of course, then there's opportunities for the user to share it, to ideally discuss it with others that are in the immersive environment. Ideally also to then purchase the object if they feel they need to, or to order it, or to customize it. If Estelle or Courtney offer those options to, hey, you know what, you really love my pair of sunglasses, perhaps you'd like to customize it. What colors would you like to choose? And so again, it's creating that intimate connection with the consumer, which is what we're trying to create inside Semblance World.
Oh, it sounds amazing. And you also suggested the other day that you might be able to sit front row at a fashion show. You might be able to walk into a store and try something on.
Exactly. And so in Semblance World, you are always VIP. And so you're always at front row of a fashion show. And so ideally, the experience of the fashion show is that you're seeing either the videos streaming at you, or you're being immersed inside of a fashion show. And so you're able to click and then stop the show as you need it, have a look at whatever items it is on display, or the model that's on display, click it, share it. You're able to like it and keep it within your profile, and come to it later on and then kind of understand how it is this particular asset or object, whether you want to order it or buy it or ask one of the designers to customize it for you. And so, yes, very much so. There is an opportunity to go ahead and have a personal experience of a fashion show. On the other end of Semblance World is more the space that is designed as a mall. And so there you can go and kind of explore different brands and their products and what is possible, and be able to purchase those items as well.
You've mentioned avatars. My real life measurements, would they be embedded in the avatar, and other things that other data capturing information would be embedded in my as I go through the metaverse?
Right. So I know we spoke about all the things that are possible when it comes to the technology. And yes, it is possible to do that. Currently, in Semblance World, we are in phase 1. And so we can look to that kind of customization later on, but definitely the technology is there, it exists, we're able to implement it as need be. But when you experience Semblance after this discussion, you would just ideally choose a simple avatar and go ahead and explore Semblance World as a first user.
Badriyah, I know that Ginny is going to be having a special discussion with you after this, but Ginny, do you have any questions for Badriyah now, or would you like to save them for your discussion with Badriyah and Roberta?
Well, we do have a lot to get into in the nitty-gritty of this project, but maybe just to kind of close out this discussion, I can ask, why do you think this, to me, Semblance World feels like such a logical fit for the fashion industry right now? As you say, the technology is out there. It's almost unbelievable to me that people haven't pursued this before. Why do you think there is a bit of hesitancy maybe in the fashion industry to kind of adopt this technology?
That's such a brilliant question, Jenny. I mean, fashion in itself has taken a long time even to adopt e-commerce, and e-commerce has been around for such a long time, right? And so there has always been a sense of disconnect between fashion and technology. We didn't understand, or maybe many brands didn't understand, what influence technology can have. And with technology growing so exponentially now and becoming so relevant since the pandemic, it's touching absolutely every single industry. Fashion is no exception to how technology is affecting us. And so, yes, it makes sense that we would continue this journey, explore it. We're in such an exciting time and phase to understand the technology and how it can work for us. And I think the designers themselves who weren't aware of how this technology can help them connect with their consumers, connect with buyers, I think this has kind of opened them up to what is really possible in such a sustainable way as well.
I'm so looking forward to really getting into the details, because it's truly such an exciting project. I'm really happy to be part of the launch.
Thank you.
It sure is. And Badriyah, thank you so much for your insights into, well, we're not actually on the brink of fashion's future. We're already in it, aren't we?
We're in it. Yes.
We're in it. And good luck with the launch today by Creative Victoria of the Semblance World Metaverse. And thank you too to all our other panellists, to Estelle Michaelides, Denny Francisco, Courtney Stoltz and Darren Vukasinovic of Ignition Immersive. Now, I'd like to hand the baton to my co-host, Ginny Maxwell, and to Ari Offman, a public programmer and video games curator at ACME, Australia's Museum of Screen Culture. They're going to dive even deeper into the Semblance World Metaverse with its visionary creators, Roberta Annan and Badriyah Henry. So over to you, Ginny and Ari.
It's my great pleasure now to join Ari Offman in speaking to the co-founders of Semblance Worlds, Badriyah Henry and Roberta Annan, in depth about the new luxury metaverse that they're launching today. Before we begin our discussion, though, I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of this country, who are the world's first creative technologists and part of the world's oldest continuing culture. I'm broadcasting from the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and I pay my respects to their elders, past and present. This panel also brings together participants from all over the world, so I'd like to extend that respect to Indigenous peoples worldwide. Now, Roberta and Badriyah, we have heard a little bit about the user experience of Semblance World already, but I'm really interested in the back end. How can designers get involved with this project?
So thank you, Jenny, for having us today. It was really interesting to hear the conversation that we had earlier with the designers, because it really gave us some great insight into how they experimented with technology. And they were saying all the right things of how technology is influencing the way they're creating, the way they're exploring how to create their products, not just to the consumer, but also from the manufacturing and production side of it. And so when we're looking at Semblance and the position and how designers can get involved, there's so many ways they can do so, whether it's for them to connect with the right buyers interested in their collections is such an interesting kind of experiment that we can go on and explore with them. When they want to connect with their consumers, they can create different kind of adventures or experiences for them to understand how it is that the creative process came about to the final product that they've made. And so there's so many ways that they can get involved in the back end. We can co-create, we can collaborate, we can experiment, we can create case studies for them. And so we're actually living in such a experimental and exciting time when it comes to technology and fashion coming together.
Absolutely. I mean, that panel, I think even just speaking personally, it was so invigorating hearing all those different perspectives. We spoke a bit in the previous panel about the preconceptions that fashion might have about the kind of tech space. And I think Semblance World really breaks those down. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about your journey with this project and where it all began.
Thank you so much, Ginny, and greetings everyone from the center of the world, Accra, Ghana. I'm really honored and privileged to be part of this discussion, and also just dovetailing from your earlier contribution or acknowledgement of Indigenous people. I really like that, because sometimes we get caught up with the glitz and glam of, whether it's fashion industry, and we forget about acknowledging heritage and culture, especially as it pertains to people. And I would say that that is the foundation upon which Semblance was actually created, was to use technology as a tool to provide a level playing field, especially for those who are in communities that don't have the capital and infrastructure to access technology or to meet new markets. And earlier, before the pandemic began, Badriyah and I have worked on several projects together, and in individual capacities, for myself within African Fashion Foundation, which is really set up as an advocate to support emerging talents from the African continent, and obviously deployed over $1.7 million to support and to build infrastructure for emerging talents from this region. And Badriyah's Fashion Foresight is really looking at how to plug technology into emerging talent. We just came together to partner to create a platform called the African Fashion Week Middle East with other partners. And the idea was to do a show in Dubai. And then, of course, we had the pandemic right in the middle of planning. So we wanted to find ways in which we could still be innovative, still give a platform for emerging designers to showcase their work. But of course, considering the fact that people could no longer travel, we created this concept, of Semblance World, which has evolved actually from the earlier, I would say, plan into what it is now, and what it's continuing. Of course, with the Unreal Engine grants, we're looking at even creating more magic. But one key thing here is the inclusivity. For us, it's using technology as a tool to bring people together, to change mindsets. And I'm sure that we all know that the pandemic has also allowed us to, really reflect. We're recalibrating our values and our morals as citizens of the world. We're becoming more environmentally, savvy when it comes to things that are promoting climate injustice. We're against that. We're also even looking at movements like the Black Lives Matter, and all of those things that happened on the African continent. It means that people are actually becoming more and more sensitive about creating diversity and inclusivity in the fashion space. And Semblance can allow that. So we're not only catering to luxury brands that have the big budgets, but we're also dedicating a portion of, the work to emerging talent, especially those are from Africa and in, I would say, vulnerable emerging markets. So we're really excited to be here today and to be part of this conversation and to unveil Semblance to your audience.
I know Ari wants to get into all the details of the Epic Mega Grant, but just before we go there, I know your background is in environmentally sustainable business practices and entrepreneurship, and you mentioned that that's kind of an element of Semblance World as a project as well. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how technology like this can be used to promote sustainability.
Yes. When you talk about fashion and sustainability and technology, I believe technology is a tool to actually promote sustainability within the fashion space. Because if you look at how there are three ways in which the fashion industry actually affects when it comes to environmental sustainability. Number one is through the production. Number two is through fashion waste. And number three is how we actually showcase the work to the wider, whatever is buyers, press, or the audience. So these three things, the system and the strategy in which we go about it is actually not the most environmentally friendly. So number one, if the world has shifted from bespoke indigenous to fast fashion, right? And that means that we constantly have to create to meet the demands, right? So the process of producing pieces is not the most friendly for our environment because we use toxic chemicals in the production processes emits a lot of greenhouse gases. So these things, of course, have become an issue. But if you're looking at technology, what you can do is you can actually kind of replace this production by using technology to still produce pieces that are not going through the same system of production, right? So that is a sustainable kind of mechanism to be able to showcase like what earlier on we learned from the other panelists is about choosing colors, and different designs. You can do that within Semblance without actually producing and using dyes. So that is one area. The second area is how you dispose of fashion. I'm not sure if you know this, but where I'm from in Ghana, West Africa is a dumping ground for fast fashion. So 40% of the clothing that actually comes here have defects from major Western countries. So a lot of them end up in the landfills. Just a couple of weeks ago, I did an interview with BBC, and this was actually the topic. It's becoming an issue for, people that are living around the, I would say, coastal areas, because what happens is it moves from the landfills to the coast, and then that also affects marine life. So disposing of fashion is an issue, but if you have a platform like ours, where you can actually, have a limited engagement in terms of with the actual pieces, right? And in terms of how it's disposed, that is one way of looking at it from a sustainability perspective. And the third, like I said, is for me, sustainability, it also goes into things like biodiversity. Biodiversity also cuts across communities, heritage, and culture. And for us, being able to give this kind of inclusive environment, in a sense, is also protecting our environment. Because if indigenous cultures are missing, right, and we're only promoting certain cultures of European cultures, and we're missing what is African, then we're not promoting biodiversity, and we're not also protecting what we've been blessed with, as people from, all walks of the world. And we need to be able to promote and encourage that. And that is why I was very happy with your introduction. And that's why we're here today with Semblance.
It's great. It's so interesting, the impact that technology can have, like both on fashion, but in creating a sustainable industry within fashion as well. But I wanted to go back a little bit to the journey of the creation of Semblance World. And we've talked a little bit about how it's come about through the process of an Epic Games mega grant, which I think will be quite interesting to a lot of people listening, because when thinking about Epic Games, fashion is probably not the first association that they would have in their mind. We would think obviously of things like Fortnite, the Epic Store, and of course, look, Unreal Engine, which is like integral in the creation of gaming world. So can you take us through a bit of through the journey that you've had in gaining this Epic Games mega grant? What was the sort of process that you went through, and also what are the sort of hot tips that you've got for people who might want to secure a similar grant?
Thank you, Ari. So yes, you don't necessarily associate Epic with fashion, but they actually do have a fashion team and fashion department, and they are willing to experiment of exploring fashion in the metaverse. And so it was kind of kismet, where we had this idea to create this this world where brands can immerse themselves and you could explore it. And so it evolved from Africa Fashion Week Middle East not being able to happen in Dubai, to then shaping it into Semblance World that addressed all the issues that the fashion industry had, because we had taken part in a hackathon where we discussed these very important issues when it came to sustainability and what are we actually doing and why are we doing it. And so it evolved from that point onwards to become an actual solution. And so when I had pitched to Epic Games, a partner of mine was like, you know what, this is such a brilliant idea. Let's see what happens. Why don't you go ahead, submit what the idea and the concept that you have, and let's see what happens. And so we did so, not thinking much about it, or just, if it happens, it happens, let's see. And time went by, and so we were seeing how to kind of make Semblance happen on our own. And they came back to us and they were like, you know what, this is a brilliant idea. We are exploring the metaverse. We do have an idea to explore fashion in the metaverse. It aligns so well. So go ahead, let's see what you guys can do and let's bring this concept to life. And from there, it kind of just, I would say by the last quarter of 2020, it kind of spearheaded and became such an easy process to work with them. They understood the concept. It wasn't hard for them to understand exactly what it is for, in terms of what we want to create, because obviously they're in the gaming and digital space. And so we went ahead. By April, I would say, we got the grant, and then we went and we started to create the functionality of Semblance, because the architecture of Semblance was created. We had done that from November into the new year. The architecture was there. It was now, how do we make this functional and how do we make it relevant for our industry? And so that's what we've been kind of shaping for quite a while. And we're so excited to kind of have you guys explore it after this discussion and see what's possible inside. But definitely, I would say the tips to kind of get the same opportunity would be some kind of concept that is very innovative, that makes sense in the metaverse and in the digital world, because we are aware that the metaverse is the future. How can you ideally use the metaverse and use the tools and the software that's available to impact or change your industry? If you can drill down that concept, there are opportunities out there like the Epic Mega Games grant that can bring that to life, that experimentation to life.
Fantastic. And look, we've talked quite a lot about the sustainability that working within a technical and a digital environment like Semblance offers. But I'm really interested in this intersection between technology and fashion. And I'm wondering from both Roberta and Badriyah, what opportunities do you think this offers the various levels of the industry? So as a whole, what opportunities does this offer the fashion industry? What unique opportunities does this offer designers? But also, what unique opportunities does this offer the end user who are going to be coming to a metaverse like Semblance World?
No, I think that what this is giving us, right? And I can use myself as an example. I wasn't as knowledgeable about technology and you know, I wasn't as creative or innovative, but through this exercise, I'm always learning new things, right? I'm always thinking outside the box. And I think this is what it is going to drive innovation, because digital transformation is also pushing the innovation agenda with the industry. And I think that is what we're looking to do. And then what even works for me, what makes me more excited, is the fact that you're also giving the same level of access that maybe a Chanel would give to its creative directors. You are doing that for emerging and up and coming designers and people from all walks of life. It also promotes collaboration. Like what we saw here today is we could even create collaborative pieces between Australian designers, African designers, people from the Middle East. And that is, the world is changing. We can no longer be set in our old ways. We need to be more open-minded. And I think those who are archaic and believe that the systems that were in place were only defined for a certain, few brands who had access and had privilege is changing. And I remember when we were part of this hackathon, one of the key questions that came up was, how do we make fashion weeks more exciting, right? Should Fashion Week revert to the same old, I am, like a celebrity, an influencer, so I get front row and, every photographer wants to take a, picture of me. Should it be that? Or should Fashion Week be any Tom, Dick, and Harry can wear the African print and sit at the front row? And that is what Semblance gives you. Everybody is a VIP. So we are focusing on humanity and the uniqueness and authenticity that makes us, you know what I'm saying, like creatives or innovators. And we are using technology as a tool to really disrupt the status quo, because I think the world is becoming so boring, as we are always looking at these influencers, and it's like you never get in. I always speak on behalf of African designers. They're so talented, but they don't have the same level of access. So now you're giving them that platform to also feel good about themselves, right? And this is what Semblance is doing. It's really making all of us innovative and creative in the way we think. And we're changing the status quo and going back to a new norm, and I always say this, that we are actually creating the platform and opportunity, and we're leading the way. So I know that people are going to follow our what we are setting, the path that we're setting.
To add, Ari, I think what is also important is the fact that events or experiences is not going to happen exclusively offline and exclusively online. It's a hybrid situation. And so what does hybrid mean? And we feel that we are part of defining what hybrid is in the future of fashion. We also understand that from a technology point of view, data is becoming so valuable. And what we realize is that a lot of people don't know how to use that data, especially the fashion brands, how to use it. How does it make sense for me? How does it make sense for my brand? For me to then use it to not only create, but to create with relevance. And so it's important that the designers, it's almost like we're also a part of the education for them to understand how technology can help them. And once that connects, I mean, we saw with the designers that we spoke to earlier, once they understood exactly how the technology worked, their creativity started just flowing out. I can make my chameleon come to life. I can interchange colors. I can do all these, I can create a story inside of, and it created this excitement among them. And so that's kind of the conversations and the way and the journey that we want to create with them as well.
On that note, it makes so much sense to me to bring fashion not just to a digital space, but to a playful space. And I just wondered, obviously you've been using gaming technology to build Semblance World, and I wonder whether game design influenced your process as well.
Yes, so when we had created Semblance, ideally it was a space where you could experience collections and experience events. And when we realized the power of Unreal Engine and what is actually possible, even our eyes opened up to, oh my gosh, why hasn't fashion been using this for the longest time? And so our creative juices also started flowing. And so it was, well, how could brands gamify themselves? And how could you actually just maybe exist digitally and not physically? Do you have to actually create physical products? You could just possibly be a digital brand, and that's your positioning as in the world as a digital brand. And so could a brand create quests? Could a brand immerse their consumer for a very long time into a journey or into an experience? And have an understanding that social media has become so noisy. You have less than 3 seconds to get a consumer's attention as they're scrolling and flipping through social media. And so how do you take them from that very noisy space to something that's more quiet, more driven towards your brand, and you can take them on that story of your brand? And so this is a part of the reason why the metaverse is becoming the future, because it's redefining what digital virtual worlds will mean to all of us.
Yeah, it's a great segue into sort of where I wanted to go next, which is about the sort of technical processes in constructing something like Semblance World, in constructing a metaverse, because we're talking about the intersection where we're not just playing with one technology, but where many different technologies need to speak together, need to interact with augmented reality, with digital 3D worlds, with virtual reality. So what were some of the challenges that you faced in creating Semblance World?
From the technical side, and of course, So we have a technical development team. And so we have these ideas and these brilliant concepts that we want to create. And then we have to kind of understand what is possible and what makes sense for phase 1, 2, 3, etc. And so, yes, we have a high level understanding of what technologies exist. But the question then becomes why we want to use the technology and why is it relevant for our industry or our designers, etc. And so, yes, we do know that augmented reality measurements and try-on and fit-on is existing, and there are companies that are specializing in these types of technologies. But how does it make sense for us to use it in Semblance World? And how does it make sense then for our designers to use that technology that we could offer in the back end of Semblance World? And so there's so much that's possible, but how is it relevant? And I think that's where we are at the moment. So at the moment, phase 1, we are completing. We are seeing how this space can become relevant for the designers and how the designers can interact with the consumers coming into Semblance World and exploring. And so I think that's actually the connections or the dots that we're trying to connect in terms of what technology is relevant. When it came to trying to track the data and how the data makes sense, because when you're looking at the data, it's raw, right? It's just numbers and lines and slashes and dots. And for me, looking at it, I was like, what on earth is, when I was talking to my developer, I was like, what on earth am I actually looking at here? Like, you know, especially coming from the fashion industry where you're so visually intuitive. And so you have to get used to trying to understand what's going on with numbers and dots and slashes. And so that was also a new journey. And so how does the data then become relevant for the brands? And how do we move that data into the back end of Semblance? And all these different things, from hosting to streaming, what is the best streaming solutions, creating, doing a kind of study on it, and kind of experimenting, is AWS a better solution than an out-of-box solution? And so these are the discussions we've been having throughout our journey. And so I know Roberta's laughing because to her it's like a whole foreign situation.
It's like a foreign situation. And I think one interesting thing is also funding. So initially, Badriyah and I invested to create the architecture of Semblance World. And then the grant allowed us to bring in more tech support to actually create the functionality, which is what we're going to be showcasing here. But it's, you know, we both run our individual companies, and it's been a challenge, you know, because of course, with technological companies, you don't want to also be so open with ideas because of IP issues. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, you know, trying to reach different, I would say, investors, and making sure that we want to make sure that we have the right product, which is functional, and basically protect that before, and which is what we have now, right? Before we can actually open it up to other investors. And that was something that we also, you know, we had challenges with that in the beginning, you know, in terms of when do we engage brands, when do we approach luxury brands, when do we actually test the functionality of Semblance to make sure that it's ready for us to present, you know, as a finished product, and then when do we actually go to market and raise extra capital. So it's just like starting a tech company, you know, it comes with its own challenges. It's been more of that than a fashion company. It's like, you know, getting the right team in place, making sure that everybody's dedicated and is committed to the strategy that we've adopted for the company, and also meeting those deadlines. So we're really excited to be here. In fact, I'm really ecstatic because I was very worried, you know, because, you know, the world has received us so well, you know, with this, and then, like, you know, just earlier on in the conversation. So we are also under pressure to deliver and also to meet the expectations. And, you know, we hope that we will get relevant collaborators and partners that can help us grow.
I would love to hear more about what that growth might look like. What, in both practical terms and totally impractical terms, what's the biggest dream for Semblance World?
The big dream for Semblance World is that we are the go-to place for the audiences or gamers, fashionistas, fashion enthusiasts to come and explore brands. A world of brands that can take you on their journeys, where you can understand and connect with that designer or that specific brand in ways that is not possible in the digital space, in the solutions that we have right now. That is, for us, the big picture of Semblance World. I could teleport to one of my favorite brands in one part of the USA and teleport to another brand in Africa and see beautiful designs, or a beautiful designer tell me a story about their creativity and how their products came about. And I can do that from the comfort of my home, and I can explore with my friends, and I can it's a borderless and timeless place. I think that's how we want to position it in the future.
Fantastic. And I love the way you talk about narrative in that way, because I think that's definitely an experience as a consumer. That's an experience that's so lacking from e-commerce currently.
I'll put my consultant hat on and say that a lot of the time when we're consulting brands, there's always an issue of how to connect with the consumer. Why should I buy your product, or why should I engage with you? And so we realize that with millennials and Gen Z and the younger generations, to gain their trust is much harder than it was with the previous generations. And so storytelling is where it makes sense and where it fits in, and kind of creating that personal connection is so important. And I think that's also a part of why we want to create this space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to add to that, also the sustainability thing is key, because young people are driving this whole transparency. And where are my clothes made? You know, are we paying fair wages? So all of these things are becoming more and more important. So we need to also be able to plug in. I think giving that transparency, you know, on the brand level to consumers is what Semblance can also offer. And that's key, especially when you look at the trend of how millennials shop.
For emerging or even established designers who see Semblance World and realize that they really want to explore, you know, the digital space and what it can do for their practice and for their business, what kind of resources are out there?
So what we're looking to do at Semblance is actually to promote education and get designers to actually use Unreal Engine as an educational tool. We're also in discussion with a major university. We cannot unveil the identity of this university, but it's in Europe, to have a partnership where we set up some kind of a lab to allow for fashion designers that want to explore how to use technology to advance their brands to actually be part of the Semblance Lab in partnership with that university. And because I believe that as you give the platform to students to really engage and to think innovatively and creatively, especially linking to a business like Semblance, so they don't necessarily only get the academic aspects of it, but they also get like the experience, by learning as we go, making mistakes and learning from the mistakes. And so that's why we believe that a lab is actually very essential to supporting, and to drive innovation within the fashion tech space, and starting with that university. And the idea is to even extend it to other regions. So looking at Asia, Middle East, Africa, to really just have, even though the platform will be in Europe, having designers or fashion designers or creatives from other parts of the world also plug into this system. So we are promoting education. We believe it's important because as a tech company, you have to always have new ideas, and it's tech businesses are driven by innovation, and so it's not exclusive to a fashion tech company like Semblance. So we also have to ensure that we are also including people from, diverse backgrounds that have, different ideas, things that we're not, so privy to. We need to also allow them and give them a platform to help shape up Semblance so that it becomes more of a global thing than just, a Badriyah and Roberta platform.
Absolutely. So really, Semblance is less of a kind of product and more of a movement almost.
Exactly. It's like we're creating the Semblance World, which is...
Yeah, sorry. Jenny, I think the reason why ideally we wanted to create this lab as well is the fact that we know that the fashion industry has to change. And so how do you flip a whole industry on its head that it makes that we're talking about sustainability, but how are we actually becoming sustainable? And so the lab is definitely going to be that point where the tools of technology are possible to create that change within the young up-and-coming designers that are looking to create their fashion brands. And so that journey is long. It's going to be tedious, but we feel that if we really want to make a change in the fashion industry, they need to understand the technology. They need to know what's possible. If designers are looking at resources at the moment, there is a software tool called Clo 3D where you can make digital models of your clothing. So you can start experimenting with that software at the moment. How do you create your clothing as a digital 3D asset? Start from there and let's see where this can go. And I think that's very important.
Absolutely. I mean, knowledge is power.
Well, we're almost coming to the end of our discussion. Of course, this is a launch for Semblance World, and I know that everyone watching is going to be incredibly eager to dive in and to experience these things that we've been talking about. So can you tell us a little bit, just to wrap up, after this, what would you like people to do? How can they enter Semblance World? What type of journey should they take? And how long are they going to be able to experience it for?
All right, so you can obviously go through the link to access Semblance World. You would put in your details, you'd select your avatar, and you would then start exploring. It's open. There's no necessarily a path that you have to navigate through. It's free. And you go ahead and you start exploring. We've put the various designers into their different locations. And so we're going to see how it is that people kind of respond to the brands, and especially Estelle's brand. And I think it was also Courtney's sunglasses that we would be placing inside of Semblance World. And you can go and experience it and see what it is. No matter where you are sitting right now, you can go and experience those brands for yourself. We haven't blocked out any of the areas in Semblance World, so it's open for you to go and explore.
Fantastic. Well, look, I wanted to do a huge thank you to both yourself, Badriyah, and to Roberta, and to my co-host in this, Jenny Maxwell, for your time. It's a really exciting proposition. I think it's a new evolution, again, in this intersection between fashion and technology, and we're looking forward to seeing exciting, great and new things from Semblance World in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for letting us be part of this launch. Apart from anything else, it's just so thrilling seeing a project like this in the fashion industry. I can't wait to explore it further.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Ari. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jenny Maxwell, Roberta Annan, Badriyah Henry, and Ari Offman. You've brought us full circle to the end of this creative exchange and the real beginning of fashion's new reality. To everyone here, if you're interested in receiving the latest fashion news, including box fresh information about grants and events from Creative Victoria, be sure to click the link in the chat to subscribe today. And on behalf of Creative Victoria, thank you to Ari Offman and Travis Geldard and their dedicated AV teams at ACME, the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, based right here in Melbourne. Thanks, Ari, Travis and crew for bringing this event and fashion's new reality to life. And thank you all for joining us.